The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera was my third camera. It came after a DSLR and a little point and shoot. And no one can deny the advantages of the BMPCC, Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, internal RAW, internal ProRes, decent colour science, and 13 stops of dynamic range. Unfortunately, that was all the Blackmagic had going for it. Now that I have my C100 Mark II and I've seen what a cinema camera's like, I really notice the disadvantages of the Pocket Cinema camera. First up, the battery life. If you were really lucky and if you tried really hard to conserve battery, you could get 45 minutes most. Really though, half an hour would be considered good. You had to have an external battery or at least hundreds of spare batteries because otherwise you'd be out of power instantly. Now, as indicated in the name, Pocket Cinema camera, the camera is really small. But that's not necessarily a good thing because as soon as you put a lens on it, it no longer really fits in your pocket. And even if you use a small lens, a small light camera like that is so shaky that your image is basically unusable unless you have a shoulder rig or an image stabilized large lens. The low light of the camera isn't very good either, probably due mostly to that small Super 16 sensor, which we will come on to later. But the noise levels, they weren't too bad at ISO 1600, but ISO 1600 was the most the camera could do, nothing beyond there. So, not really a low light monster. And as I mentioned before, the tiny sensor. My 650D has a 1.6 times crop, a GH4 or GH5 has about a 2 times crop. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera had a 2.88 times crop, so nearly 3 times. Getting a wide angle was really difficult. Even a 12mm full frame lens was about 35mm because of the camera's sensor. Now, I did try to mitigate this problem with a Metabone speed booster, and that worked really well. Briefly, until it broke. One of the pins on the inside got bent, it scratched up the back of one of my lenses, and then there was now no electronic communication between the lens and the Metabone speed booster. So any lens with an electric aperture control, I was pretty much limited to manual old prime lenses. And of course, the speed booster broke a few months after the warranty expired. The camera had some sort of autofocus-ish. You could press the focus button and then after a few seconds or a few minutes, it would focus sort of on what you were aiming the camera at. Live autofocus, no. Now, I know some people don't make a big deal about autofocus, but when you compare it to the dual pixel system in the C100 Mark II, it makes the Blackmagic focusing system look a bit dated. The Blackmagic Pocket has no slow motion whatsoever, none at all. No way to do it in camera. You could shoot 30 FPS and then in post use frame blending or something to try and fake it a bit, but not ideal. If you want to record audio directly into the Blackmagic Pocket, then you will need an external preamp because otherwise it will be horrible. There's hiss and noise everywhere. And finally, build quality. The bottom tripod mounting plate on my Blackmagic Pocket went all wobbly and loose, so it didn't really work on a tripod anymore, and now the camera has to be in a cage, otherwise it just wobbles around everywhere. I kind of see what Blackmagic was going for with this camera, and the dynamic range and internal recording options are very impressive. But I have to ask, if you need a cage and a shoulder rig to keep the camera steady, a Metabone speed booster to deal with the crop factor, and a ton of batteries or one big external battery to power the camera, it's not really a Pocket Cinema camera anymore. I mean, sure, the camera would fit in your pocket, but all the equipment you'd need to use it would have to be in a backpack. Maybe I'm being too harsh on the camera, I don't know. I certainly learned a lot from using it, and now in the future, if I ever use a RAW camera, I've got experience of RAW workflows from the Blackmagic. And I learned stuff too from having to rig out the camera and choose what accessories worked best with the camera. I got the camera in a sale for £500, but with all the accessories I bought for it, I've gone over £1,000 now in total stuff I had to get for the camera. So it isn't quite as budget friendly as you may think it is. But now I have a C100 Mark II, and yes, it doesn't have RAW and I can't get 10-bit ProRes because of the 8-bit HDMI out, and yes, I do slightly miss the dynamic range, but in general I'm much happier with the C100, all of the features it has like the autofocus, the battery life, good audio inputs, ergonomic, built-in slow motion. To me, that outweighs all the benefits of the Blackmagic Pocket. Maybe I'll try a Blackmagic camera in the future. but right now I'm more focused on the Canon Cinema series of DSLRs, and I think the XE series look quite interesting too. And it's true, the colour science that Canon has, it's amazing. I love it. I enjoy shooting on the C100 Mark II much more. Not having to attach external accessories for half an hour, it allows you to focus more on what you're filming, rather than how long until you run out of battery, or card space, or thinking about how you can't shoot slow motion, or having out of focus shots. If you found this helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more videos, and I will see you later.